Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate in Lakota means people. Brought to you by Native Sun News Today. Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guest tonight is Mr. Larry Travis Pourier, Oglala Sioux tribal member and award-winning filmmaker. Thank you so much for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a good discussion. I'm really proud of your work, and I'm just excited to have this discussion tonight. So thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it.
Definitely. For sure. And can you tell me a little bit about yourself then? And definitely for our viewers who have not heard of yourself, please.
Well, I was born and raised in Pine Ridge. Grew up in Northridge and knew Crazy Horse housing, and out of town, live out by Kyle now. And grew up in the Thunder Valley area. And I had a pretty normal upbringing in Pine Ridge. Went to school in Pine Ridge and high school at Red Cloud. And then I graduated from St. Martin's Academy in Rapid City. But, it was a great childhood. We got to play outside a lot, got to spend a lot of time with elders. And I think looking back, that was probably the most important part of my journey then, which has brought me to where I am today, was just spending so much time with my grandparents and learning the value of respect and, being humble and having compassion for others. And mainly having a good work ethic, I think, is what I learned from my grandparents. So it was a pretty normal life, but, when I was in 5th grade, that's when in 1973, when the Wounded Knee occupation started. That's when I got my first taste of, that I wasn't really living a normal childhood, because next thing you know, there's army tanks, machine guns, military people all around. And then at night, you would see it on the national news. It was one of their cover stories for a couple weeks there. And so I think at that point I realized I was different, because I never had really left the reservation. When I saw how the media would speak about Indian people, I was aware then that I was a Native person living in a white world, because I lived on the reservation. But then, so fast forward 20 years, and I graduated, went to college, got a film degree, and ironically, 20 years after that, I was working on Lakota Woman.
And we'll get to that, but I just want to kind of get that early perspective of having that introduction to your life or your lifestyle in a national media audience. And so do you think that you were portrayed as a young Native boy on the reservation kind of negatively then, or how do you feel that the media was portraying your people or your family or yourself?
Well, I guess just like everybody else, we grew up watching in Cowboys and Indians, which is all the stereotypes you could think of. Because, I knew that, for the most part, cowboys and Indians and mountain men and communities, they got along, they traded, so until the government and the army got involved, then it became a problem. So I don't think it's the people of the country, I just think it's the way we've been portrayed. And that's one reason why I wanted to do films and film stories, because of the way it made me feel like, oh, so now am I supposed to feel lesser than somebody because I'm not, because I am an Indian, because of all the stereotypes? And then seeing all these pink Indians on TV, with the orange paint and so forth, and when you look at the credits, they're Italian or Mexican or what have you. So I didn't realize it, but that really had an effect on me, that not so much questioning who I was, but questioning, why don't people take the time to learn who we are instead of just judging us? And I felt the best way I could do that was through films and documentaries. So I went to film school in Denver, and then got my first job there, and then my first film was Lakota Woman. And even in the film business, when you first start, nobody's Indian on the crew or in the cast, so you're still basically an outsider, but the movie's about your people. So that was hard, when they were wanting to show this, show that, and I didn't agree with it, but I didn't have the power or the authority to say anything.
What was your role then in Lakota Woman? I know that it's a book as well then, and it got made into a movie.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
like a
correct?
made-for-TV
Kind of?
film. It
Yeah.
was Jane Fonda's the one that I think started the project in the happening, because Turner was doing some native films at that time. I think they did about 7 of them, and I worked on about 4 of them. But that particular one, it had a more of a personal meaning to her because she read the book, and the strength of the Lakota women that we all know about. I think that's what got her attention. So it wasn't really kind of going in hand with the other films that we were doing, but because it was Turner Productions and she was with Ted, that became one of the movies. And I remember when we were doing that movie, because I remember the feeling I had in 5th grade that there's some weird energy, like negative energy or judging and hating, and I didn't understand that as a kid because I was never around it. Your grandparents teach you to have compassion and be humble, and so I didn't understand what was so separate. Why are we so different that we have to fight each other? And I think when I learned that I was actually making progress was when we were doing Lakota Woman, and the people who were, maybe goons during the takeover, during the occupation, and then the ones that were part of the American Indian movement, when we were making the movie, they were both there, the real people.
The actual people from 1973.
Yeah, but they were there together and talking and visiting and having lunch together. So to me, that showed me through the power of film, by recreating these stories, sure, you're going to bring back negative and tragic memories for people that lost family members. But at the same time, as we grow older, we start to see that we're another generation that's still healing from what we've been through. Not to say we're pitiful, not to say we're traumatized. It's just, unless you've been through this, you can only hear it from other people, as a Native person. But we're way past the pity. We're way past the, what can you do for me? I don't see that anymore. I see a lot of Native people that are getting out there and getting degrees, and doctors, attorneys, running programs, starting programs to build housing, starting language programs. I can name a couple people off the top of my head. There's Osiri and Slim Buttes, who's run by Brian Deans. He's creating a green and off-the-grid type community where, he's got solar, he's got wind turbines, he's got underground homes, and Clausen Construction and Kyle, he's building smaller homes so that when people either come to the res to work, or when your grandmother's old and wants to retire and you want her to live by you, they have the smaller homes. Because I think people get caught up in, that I'm on a list to get a house. And that's really not how it works.
No.
And going back to the way I was brought up too, and I'm very grateful that my grandfather told me, never allow yourself to be at the mercy of the government. Whatever you want to do, just go do it. Go do it on your own, just like everybody else. Go out and get a job, buy something, pay for it. He said, do not get on a list of handouts.
And letting that be your goal then.
Yeah. And the reason that program is there is to help people that can't take care of themselves, like elders and children and so forth. So I totally think it's necessary. But if you're brought up to say, you don't need that, that's what we need to hear. We
Definitely.
don't need to be like that, It's there because it's there to help people. But there's a lot of us that don't need that help, but we've just kind of fallen into the pattern of it.
And let's get back to this Lakota Woman then, and the impact that had on your life, because it did bring healing, not only for yourself, but your community. And like you said, you had goons and AIM members working together and collaborating on this film then. So what was that like, and what role did you play in that film actually? What was
It was one of my first films, so I was a production agent, production assistant, which is basically the starting job, the first job, like if you went to Burger King or something, first thing you do is you gotta clean, and I was a production assistant.
Cool.
I had to run errands, I had to go get donuts, I had, all those little things that kind of a gopher does.
Yeah.
But seeing the atmosphere of a film and the kind of the joy of making it too, which is definitely good, but there's a lot of hours involved, so the joy part of it.
It will still work.
Yeah.
You know, Larry, let us take a break, but let's start getting into your other films then, because I really want to kind of continue and go from where we're at right now. But we'll take a quick break, and we'll learn a little bit more about the impressive work of Mr. Pourier here. We'll be back after a short break.
Native Son News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Son News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Son News covers the other side of the story.
You can't predict life's ups and downs. You just give it all you've got to stay on top. But it's easier with a partner like Security First Bank. Since 1898, we've been riding with you through the country's biggest ups and downs. And this is where we'll stay. Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on. Member FDIC.
It's really difficult in any medical clinic when we see patients injured in car wrecks who cannot afford the medical treatment that they need. So many of them had an insurance claim that they settled on their own without taking this into consideration. Of course, the insurance company won't open their claim after it's been settled, so they cannot get the medical care necessary to recover from their injuries. Before settling a claim, it would be wise to contact the insurance claim experts at Moore Faust Injury Law Group.
I have a dream. I want to be a soldier. I have a dream. I want to be a construction worker.
You can help kids' dreams come true by donating to Rural America Initiatives Building Fund.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guest tonight is Mr. Larry Pourier, an excellent filmmaker and great storyteller. I'm just thankful for you being here and the work you're doing. One of your film projects that you worked on was Skins, the movie Skins. Can you tell me a little bit, and what was special about this film, actually?
Well, Skins really has a special place in my heart, I think, because, you know, I found out they wanted to do the movie it was based on a story on the reservation, but because of difficulties getting a license, you know, because the tribe had really never worked with the film company before, you know, what's legal, what's not. That's why people never did it. People have shown parts of the reservation in films, but never worked there with the crew, you know, hiring locals, hiring people's, renting their homes from them and paying them, you know, to leave their house for 2 nights. And, you know, people were really, really happy with that because I wanted to make sure we use local extras, we use local crew, you know, because if you're portraying Indian people on camera, it's only right that you have people behind the camera that can make it full circle and make it complete. Otherwise, you just have Indians reading a script. So I think, to me, bigger than what's on the script and the people that are there is when you get that many people together and they're positive and they're working together, it's really healing not only within those Indians, whether they're from different tribes or not, because it doesn't matter. You know, once you get on a crew, and this applies to all cultures, all races, when you're on a crew together, you become like a family. And that's one thing I learned. So then I stopped separating whites, Mexicans, blacks, Indians. And it's about the energy that you create when you bring people together. So when we were doing Skins, I was, you know, a lot of concerns about what might happen or what could happen. And it worked out perfect. I mean, the story, I think, could have been a little more positive, but at the same time, there's a reality there about 2 brothers. One's a cop and one's alcoholic.
Yes.
And it's about him looking out for his brother through thick and thin, and that's the strength of the spirit of our people.
Do you think then that the reservation became a part of the story then?
Oh, heck yeah.
You know, as far as did it actually change and form the outcome of the movie then, or do you feel?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, but I think it explained the outlook of the actors, one, because they came to in not Indian and non-Indian actors and crew.
So it was very authentic.
Yes, and it was just a blessing to pull into Pine Ridge, and people are getting ready to have you show up at their house, and all the neighbors are coming out, and of course one of the major problems is you have dogs barking.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to do your lines and the dog barks, we can't ask the dog to bark the same time every time. So there's those kind of obstacles. Loud cars going by with no mufflers, and you're trying to have dialect. So, I mean, community-wise, it was great, but I just think overall, I don't think I did that film. I was a part of a bigger thing that I'm just very grateful and honored that I was a part of. That energy that was around Pine Ridge during that time.
Sure.
And the actors, I mean, people were coming in and wanting to go to Sweats, and so they'd never been to Sweat, they'd never been to a reservation. So, we took them to one, and it was a balance. I wouldn't say it was a regular Sweat because it wasn't that hot, but I'm just saying that, so the ability of a culture to accept another culture and invite them into something sacred, and the impact that had on the people that were invited.
Oh, I bet that was life-changing, definitely.
Yeah, and I will say this overall, every single Indian film I do, the non-Indians that I work with have all just been so thankful for the experience they've shared with our people, not because of our humor, which is the best thing about us, I think, that people are really drawn to us, that we've been through so much, but people always say, why do you laugh so much? Because that's our healing.
That is definitely. Now, another story that you told through your work has been Good Meat. Now, this is a story about a gentleman with type 2 diabetes. And could you talk to me a little bit about that and give me the story of that? Because this is very impressive that through this film, you actually helped to heal an individual, a gentleman from Pine Ridge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, I'm sure he won't mind me saying his name, but Bola Bose was chosen to take part in the film. Bo's diabetic, and we had a doctor from Regional, and it was his idea, the doctors, that what would happen if we took a native person who's diabetic and we put them on a traditional diet? What would that do to their body, and how would it affect them without the pills, dialysis, and so forth? Mm-hmm. So what we did was he had to get rid of the drinks, the Mountain Dews, and so forth. And the thing about Bo is that it was a big sacrifice for him, a big sacrifice. I mean, he had to change his whole lifestyle, health, living-wise, eating-wise, getting exercise. Yeah. So, and he did it, and it was hard, for him because he had to go to the gym, and but he had to do this to show what it would take. That you can't just say, I don't want to be diabetic anymore. There's sacrifices that you have to make. But in turn, in the end, what happened was, he lost 50 pounds in 100 days. When they did all the tests, he was no longer diabetic. And the doctors didn't have any part of that. They didn't give him medicines, they didn't give him IVs, nothing.
He just willpower.
Changed.
Wow.
And the Good Meat, the reason why it's called that is because of the importance of the buffalo diet, which is important now more than just as much as it was then, because buffalo's so much healthier and it has less fat and more iron, and so I think that was the story, is that Tatanka's still looking out for us.
But Mr. LeBeau also had a very special goal of his own that was very personal between himself and his son. And what was that story?
Yeah, that's a good point. When we first started filming, we were talking to him, and he said he wished he could play basketball with his son, and he was in his late 30s, 40s, and his son was in high school, and he just wanted to shoot around with him and stuff and play games with him, but he said he couldn't because he was too heavy. Mm-hmm. And that's how we end. Toward the end of the show, he's playing basketball with his son.
And that was on the film?
Yeah.
Wow.
But so and I think a lot of people look up to Bo because he made that sacrifice. It's hard to let a camera follow you around to your home, into your home, and listen to all the dynamics that you have to go through on the res, and getting ready for sweats and ceremonies and stuff. And so I think he was a good example of not changing anything about himself, but just changing how he feels about himself. And by doing that, he healed his spirit healed his body.
And he did all that without therapy or
No
doctor's
therapy, no.
input?
The doctors were there. They would still run tests to make sure we're not killing
Yeah.
him, you know, because we
Yeah.
changed his whole life. And he was not diabetic because of the buffalo meat, because he ate more greens, because he ate less canned food and more fresh stuff. Got rid of pop, started drinking a lot of water. And that to me is one of our major issues that people don't accept is quit drinking soda and drink water. And
Definitely.
that would solve
Talk
that.
about a powerful film, powerful story too. Good job on that. We're going to take a break, Mr. Pourier. We'll be back after a short break.
Don't let me show evil, though it might be all I take. Show me love, show me love, show me love. Yeah, I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But I don't want to get on. But if you throw me love, I'll feel it some more. Let me show cruelty, the hand of making hate. And don't let me show evil, though it might be all I take. Show me love.
I used to think news is news. It's all the same. But it's not. There's a big difference between local broadcast news and cable news. See, local stations are part of my community, connecting me to local news, weather, and sports on every device. It makes sense. Get the news from the people I trust who actually live here. No agenda, no bias like on cable shout shows or social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local stations. Text TV to 52886 today.
If youth and family services weren't available in this community, there would be a lot of unmet basic needs. Very few organizations do as good a job as youth and family services, getting every ounce of usefulness out of people's time, their dollars that they donate.
Youth and Family Services help so many kids. It's a great value to the community.
Join me because together we help kids.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guest tonight is Mr. Larry Travis Pourier, Oglala Sioux tribal member and just an all-around excellent storyteller in your filmmaking. So thank you for being here tonight. Now, Mr. Pourier, you've been kind of modest so far about your Emmys that we have here. We have 2 Emmys, and one was awarded to you in 2013. One of them was awarded to you in 2017. Now, those are an award that was given to you, but it was also, from my perspective, it seemed like an award that was given to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation just for, you know, the stories that come out of the reservation, and you happen to be a voice for those. So I really see those as a gift to all of us on some level. I know that you're modest about those, but I just see it as a gift to all of us for the stories that come out of our culture, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. But,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's talk about these then. One of them was awarded in 2013. Now, was that Urban Res?
Yeah.
And what's that story about then?
And that was actually my first director doing a documentary, my first director job. So I had a really good producer, Lisa Oken from Denver, and then a really good DP, director of photography, who was Boots Kennedy. He's Kiowa from Oklahoma. And so PBS brought us together, and then Vision Maker in Lincoln, Shirley Sneevy's group.
Sure.
So, but Urban Res is, so when we went to film it, I thought this is great because I could relate to it. So it was kind of, I felt comfortable going in. And then through doing interviews and so forth, and my parents were on relocation. They went to Dallas in the late 50s. So I was able to interview my mom and dad on my first film, and imagine the shock of all of us when we found out it got, I got Best Director for Best Cultural Documentary.
Wow.
And it was about our reservation and my family, but not just, it showed my family, but it was about all of our families. And like you said, and I appreciate you saying that, what you said about these, because they don't They don't mean a whole lot to me other than that I was able to get 2, so I gave one to my mom and one to my dad. And I would have felt bad if only one got one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had these in my hands less than 10 minutes because as soon as I got home, I gave them to my parents.
That's pretty impressive.
And
so the second one then is from Red Power Energy now. What was that film about?
that one was a little more complicated because, you know, with all the resources that is around on Mother Earth, there's always this question, what do natives think about using Mother Earth and taking her resources? And that's a good question, and I never really knew how to answer that because it's complicated. So what I did, rather than just going to one place, I went to North Dakota to talk to the oil people and on the reservations. Went to Wind River, and they were developing wind turbines. Went to Rosebud, they're developing wind turbines. Came to Pine Ridge and spoke with Henry Redclaw and followed him around. He's doing the solar. And so there was the story. I didn't have to go look for it. There's already Indians out there saying, this is what we could do. They don't want to dig up the earth, you know, because it's sacred to us. And to me, in my film, because I am so grateful for Mother Earth and I want to protect her as much as I can, you know, I think that really probably the main reason why I'm making films is to show the importance of our Earth and how fast we're destroying her. And so that's a cultural thing. But, you know, and then going to Crow Agency to talk about coal. So these were it was heartwarming, but it was also tragic in a sense because some of the tribes I didn't agree with what they were doing. But as a filmmaker, I can't judge. I have to give both sides of the story and let the audience decide. So that really puts me in a spot sometime of, you know, why did you talk to them? Why didn't you talk to them? But I want to just put the story out there to, one, educate people, to show us all as human beings. You know, there's so many gifts in our world that we live in, but we are so caught up in anger and bitterness and judging people, you know, and it's part of, because of internet and all that, you know, we don't go visit people anymore. And we used to at least call, now we don't even do that. We just talk on a paper. There's no emotion in typing. There's no eye contact, so you don't get no spiritual connection with anybody.
Sure.
And so that's what I want to do with films, is bring that connection back. You know, look
that
at
human connection,
and
that
then
contact.
even now I'm looking at you, but in our culture I'm not supposed to look at you because I'm supposed to respect you.
Sure.
So there's those conflicts.
Mr. Pourier, it's been an excellent conversation. I appreciate the work and your storytelling and everything you're doing. I want to thank our producers. I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Prairie Edge for hosting our show tonight. And I want to thank you for making Oyate Today a part of your night.
You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Native Sun News Today.